What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and in this video we're gonna be talking about oil. Now, I have a C7 Corvette, as you guys are aware, and I asked myself the question, should I change the oil myself or take it to a dealership and have them do it? Now, of course, I'm a YouTuber, so I'm gonna be doing it and then showcasing it for you guys, but I asked myself these questions because the first part of this video, I'm gonna show you pro and con list of why you should do it yourself or should just take it to a dealership or mechanic. And in the second part of this video, I'm gonna actually be demonstrating how to change the oil in the car, so stay tuned. It is a nice day out today. We don't normally get this out in Seattle. All right, now back to the video. So the first reason you should consider doing the work yourself instead of going to a shop is just because of price. Now, when I took my car to go get oil changed at a mechanic or the dealership, they wanted anywhere between $180 to $250 for the oil change, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous. I ended up paying around $80 total for the 10 quarts of oil, and then also the cap that goes on the bottom, the filter. So as you can tell, $80 versus $250, huge savings. And even $80 was a lot because I normally would buy it online, but I just ended up going to like AutoZone and buying the oil. And then the second reason that you should consider doing it yourself is because once you start wrenching on your car and you know how to do the oil change yourself, you become a whole lot more familiar with a car than you would if you were to take it to a dealership. And as any car enthusiast would know, once you start working on your car, you know, you really kind of notice everything that goes on under there. So it's always a good checkup to make sure there's no broken parts under there, nothing hanging from the bottom that's loose, your under trays are nice. So that's another pro for doing it yourself. The third reason why it's nice to do it yourself has to be because of the ability to have the flexibility to do the oil change when you want. Now, when you go to an oil change place, mechanic, dealership, wherever you want to go, a lot of times you have to schedule it, show up, wait in the waiting room for an hour, and do all that stuff. Now, when you know how to do it yourself, you could just plan to do it whenever you want. You can do it at night, you can do it in the morning, and I think it's just a little bit more efficient when it comes to your schedule and the flexibility of your schedule when you know how to do it yourself. Now that's it for the pros. Now let's go to the cons. All right, now of course you can't have a pro list without have a cons list, and there are some reasons why people wouldn't do the oil change themselves. Exact opposite of price is convenience. People would normally really just like the convenience of it, and in typical cars it's relatively cheap to change your oil. In higher performance cars, not so much. It kind of starts to go up a little bit. So is it worth it to go and spend the extra $100 and $150 to go get your oil change, or just to do it yourself? If you're more of a person with convenience, maybe the money doesn't bother you. You just want to get it done, get it over with. So that's one con against doing it yourself. Another con of doing it yourself is you're not really familiar with working on cars. Now, the oil change, in my opinion, is one of the easiest things you could do to a car. It's meant to be easy, and I don't think you need a whole lot of skills to be able to do it. However, it isn't as easy for people who aren't used to working on cars. So if you're not working on cars ever and you want the convenience, again, you know, I don't know why you're watching this video, but you shouldn't be doing an oil change. And then for the last reason, which is a respectable reason, you don't have the proper tools. Now, I used to work on my cars all exclusive in the garage, and I still do a lot, but I recently got a membership at what is called a shop, where I got access to a lift, and they give you all the tools you need, and I just find it to be a lot more convenient to be able to work on my car, and I can spend more of the money instead of buying a whole bunch of tools, to buy more car parts. So that was my justification on it. A lot of people do oil changes in their own garage. I would do it in my own garage. It's really not that difficult. But yeah, that's it for the pros and cons list. Let's just go into the video and let me show you guys how I change my oil. All right, guys, so before you begin on starting the oil change, go ahead and go into your settings in your Corvette and check what percentage you're at. As you can see, I'm at 35%, and I chosen just to kind of get it done early, but definitely check this out before you get started. Alright, so these little pucks go at the base of the car to be able to help it jack up. Definitely needed if you're planning on lifting the car up in any way. This is an oil filter. Easy, just replace the old one and put this new one on. I put a link in the description to this oil filter. And then 10 quarts of oil. And then I have this pure synthetic oil stabilizer from Lucas. I really like it. I put it in most of my cars, and I find that it really helps the oil last a little longer. Now let's go ahead and just take a quick walkthrough of the car, and then get it up on that lift and start the oil change. Alright, so remember that jackpot from earlier? Here's the points, and once they're in, it just makes it lifting the car so much easier. Now I got an oil catch can here to catch the oil once I open the plugs up. And here's the old filter. I'm going to remove that on the third step, but first we're going to take care of both of these two 15mm head bolts. We're going to take one off at a time. There's two drain plugs on this car. Yeah, I know it's weird, but really good, really good for the dry pump system to be able to take it out and to change the oil. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to take off the first drain plug. Now I went ahead and left the cap on the top of the car to where you put the oil in, because if you have that open, it definitely lets the flow of the oil come out a whole lot faster. And one thing I didn't really talk about when taking off the actual drain plug is that you want to make sure you check both the screw portion of it and then also the seal, which is at the base of the screw. Now I should be able to show you on this clip. Yeah, let's slow it down. And as you can see, everything looks great, which just makes sense. I mean, it's not that old of a car, so it shouldn't be that bad. But as you get higher miles, definitely check that more and more. And really the hardest part about this is really just catching the oil without spinning too much. Now the oil filter at this point was a little tough to get off because oil was all over my hand, so I just grabbed a tool to be able to spin it. But typically you want to just do everything by hand, just in case you don't really want to damage anything. But this one was a little bit kind of seized to it, to the base of the oil pan, and as you can see, it was a little hot. It's important to note that you should probably wait a little bit and let it cool down. So now I have the new oil filter. Go ahead and put a little bit of oil on the seal. Alright, so once you got that oil nice in there, you don't need to put too much, but just a nice little kind of wetness so it doesn't get seized up when you go ahead and tighten it up. So go ahead and put it back in the car, tighten it up. Only do it by hand. Don't need to bring out any other tool because you don't want to get it too tight. You just get it to the tightest you can by hand and you're good to go. Once you finish with that, you're going to go ahead and grab those other bolts that we had from earlier. Now both these 15mm bolts, just go right in and go ahead and screw it in by hand, just the same as you did with the filter. And just make sure that it goes in smoothly and it's not going in any tough. Now the important part of all this is that you don't want to have anything seized for later. And what I mean by seized is that it makes it tough to come off later. So over tightening is not necessary. Now this is for the bolts, just tighten them down to 18 foot-pounds of torque and go ahead and let it be. Now double triple check all this stuff too, because if you forget to tighten one of these parts down, when you go ahead and start putting in the oil, you're gonna have a bigger oil spill down below. So definitely go ahead and make sure you do that. Alright, so now all we need to do is go ahead and put the oil in and start off by taking this cap off. Once you take the cap off, since I have the oil stabilizer, I'm gonna go ahead and just pour half of this bottle in first, and then go ahead and pour 5 quarts of the Mobil 1 5-way 30 oil in. Since we have a total of 9.8 quarts to pour in this car, the first bottle, just go ahead and dump the whole thing in. Do it slowly, make sure you don't spill out the top, but there's no need to be very cautious about that. I just went ahead and poured half the stabilizer in up front, and then once I finish this quart, I'm just going to throw in the other half just to kind of mix it up down there. Since I'm putting in the full quart of this stabilizer, I really don't need to have it go all the way up to 9.8 quarts total. I'm gonna stop it right around 9 quarts, and it's always better to not fill it up all the way to where you think the oil is gonna be. And the reason why is because it's a lot more easier to top off the oil when you're doing the measuring when it's on the ground versus when the oil is already in the car and you need to drain it out. So always recommend doing under, just kind of starting the car, running it for a little bit. With a little less oil, it isn't going to kill it, especially if you're doing the measuring test right after you top off the oil. So right after you kind of get the amount of oil you think is right in the car, go ahead and put the cap back on, and let's go ahead and lower the car and do the measuring test. Alright, so for the measuring test, what I call it, it's very simple. All you need to do is get the car back on the ground. and turn the car on, let it run for a little bit, roughly 5-10 minutes, until the car gets up to 175 degrees for the oil temperature. Keyword oil temperature. You can check this infotainment center of your car in under settings. Once it gets up to around 175 degrees for the engine temperature, turn the engine off and then go to the front and then measure the oil with the dipstick. Now it's very crucial that you turn the engine off completely, and then at this point, if you had too much oil in the car, you'll definitely know it. But nevertheless, go ahead and check it, see where it's at. All right, that's it for the oil change, guys. Afterwards, make sure you go back into the settings and then reset your percentage of where you're at with the oil. There's just a little side marker that says that, you know, once you do an oil change, just go ahead and reset that and you're good to go. Thanks you guys for watching, and check out this next video where I went ahead and painted my brake calipers yellow.